After a week off racing, Saturday Night Thunder is back down south. This time around, the Texas Motor Speedway returned on the schedule for a 150-mile event in the Lone Star State. Welcome back to Saturday Night Thunder for round 4 of the 2024 B schedule. It's great to head back to Texas with nearly 30 drivers registered for tonight's race. It looks like championship leader Jordan Kuntz has not yet joined us, and we might see a brand new race winner, as we have already had 2 drivers collect a checkered flag so far. Wilkerson and Kuntz battling toe-to-toe for the championship, but if a new driver wins, there could be another driver immediately entering the title picture. I'll be your host for tonight's broadcast, commentating and producing. I'm David Kreutz, and it's about time that we look trackside to kick off our qualifying action. Jacob Wilkerson finds himself as the provisional pole sitter, and Jackson Van Pelt has gotten himself up to second, with most of your front runners already running their one and only qualifying lap allotted. Dana Van Meter moves up to 7th right now. Jacob Wilkerson will be on top. A few more IORA drivers are racing tonight, and those who have that Thursday night experience are making their way in here on the big show on a Saturday night. Now it looks like Jim Thurston going to be one of the many taking a time. There's Alexander Balderas. Thurston moves up to 8th on his lap, and that's the only time that's going to be taken. So for Thurston, not much is going to come of it. He's now going to be practicing to get a few more long-term laps. Carter Casey up to 7th, hoping not to replicate what happened in Las Vegas, where he found himself as the outside pole sitter and was involved in an immediate lap 1 incident with himself, ended up with major damage and ended up several laps down. Trey Holmes moves up into 7th now, as it looks like Vinny Tigner takes it up to 4th. Nobody able to catch up to. So far, the leading man in Wilkerson looks like he's got the advantage pretty firmly over the field, as Thurston is still taking his final extra laps. Gino Marrow is getting up to 4th. Gino, the rookie, is the highest sitting driver with no previous SNT activity till this season. Jacob Wilkerson is well right up there with, and it looks like the rookies are going to find themselves up to the head of the field, 1st and 4th respectively. Jim Thurston now down to 13th. Michael Deitch gets up to the 16th spot in the bright blue number 17. And David Tooker now in the number 19 gets on the way. It looks like all but 5 drivers have taken the time. Sean Rowe making his first SNT start tonight. Tyler Sevier, Curtis Sabarin, James Bowden have not attempted. David Tooker now taking his attempt right now. He'll be the 23rd driver to get one on the board. Matthew Weeks is now on track, and Alexander Balderas so far the only driver who attempted the lap who was not able to complete it. Tooker across the line going to be very loose and much slower than his average lap. That time was only good for 22nd for David Tooker. Can't get much better than that for him. Now the JV Designs number 11 of Matthew Weeks, your defending champion after all, looking for a good run tonight. And as Matthew makes it off of turn number 4, he's opening up his lap with speed, 185 miles an hour as he comes into turns 1 and 2, keeping it in 4th gear all throughout the circuit. Don't expect gear shifting to be very common tonight. Sean Rowe just got on the track, but with limited time, minimal time really, I doubt he's going to get a lap in. And now as the number 11 of Matthew Weeks will make his way through the corners yet again. It looks like Matthew, good time there, 30.538. That's going to be good for 2nd. Jumps him up inside of the front row. 59 thousandths off the pole, but nevertheless, very solid run there for the defending champ. He moves up to P2 in the nick of time. And now Sean Rowe in the number 20 gets on the track, but a little bit too late here to set any time. He's going to have to go through the final seconds knowing he'll be sitting at the back of the field tonight with the 4 other drivers who did not take a lap. Rowe's time will not be validated, and yet the qualifying session has concluded. 5 final minutes of practice before we go green, and it looks like one of our biggest fields of the season. 30 drivers have attempted to get on track at least once tonight. 29 got to qualifying, and it looks like only one driver on that pole position. That Jacob Wilkerson. Drivers get on the way here, coming out of pit road for their 5-minute warm-up session. A little bit of extra time to maybe get accustomed to track conditions here in Kentucky. Let's get accustomed to your starting grid and figure out exactly who's at the top of the board. Many familiar faces have returned for an SNT, of course, season debut or series debut. And at the front of the field is a driver we've seen many a time on FTN before. Jacob Wilkerson is going to hold that pole position, and with them going to be defending champion Matthew Weeks to his outside 59 thousandths off of the top time. You'll have third place held by Jackson Van Pelt, and for HKR, Henry Kaloff Racing, the flagship driver, starts fourth. That's Henry Kaloff, just ahead of rookie Gino Marrow. It's going to be Vinny Tigner, then P6. Alec Daffin is going to be 7th, and Mac Grab will be 8th. 9th place, that's Trey Holmes, and P10 goes to Connor Asbell in the number 72. Top 10 separated by 2.5 tenths of a second, about a quarter overall for the top driver in Wilkerson, and down to Connor Asbell's number 72. Now you'll see 11th place, that's Carter Casey, and next to him, it's the number 41 machine. It looks like tonight, right alongside Carter Casey, for the very first time, you're going to see that driver. It is, of course, Harry Smith. Brand new man alongside him will be Carter Casey. And then you'll have 13th in Scott Erickson. Jim Thurston will be in 14th with Dana Van Meter in the 27. P15. Then Ben Bushnell is 16th. Michael Deitch in the number 17 crew are going to be then 17th. Not 18th place, Kenneth Burrell. P19 and 20 going to be Chris Tripp right alongside TJ Hanley. TJ making his first start of the season in the number 8 tonight. We'll see whether or not he's got what it takes to hold on at the front of the field as the race progresses. Then you got the last men to take times, and that's going to include 21st in Matthew Fastnot, then the 0-1 machine right behind. 22nd place going to be given there to Justin Potts. David Tooker is going to be 23rd with Aaron Sayre in 24th. Then you got Sean Rowe and Alexander Balderas, 25th and 26th. It'll be James Bowden in 27th with Tyler Seaver 28th, and Curtis Sabera in the 29th and final driver here in qualifying from Texas. It's a stacked field with veterans and some FTN vets alike making some first tries of the season. A lot of drivers here in the back of the field who I think are as competitive and comparable to those who are leading. Jacob Wilkerson, pole position as he looks for his second win of the campaign. Taking a look right now at some of the drivers who have taken laps so far. Sean Rowe is going to be the fastest of which, unfortunately, Sean not able to get that qualifying time on the board. It looks like he joined just a little bit too late, and so the number 20 gets on the way here. It looks like he's setting some impressive times, but he'll have to make up some time all as the race goes down. 100 laps is our length for intermediate races all throughout the season, and so not much time for him to maybe push through without a caution helping him. There goes Jim Thurston, making it right by the number 96, the IORA champion, of course, of seasons past. Thurston makes it by Rowe, who had a wonderful race in the IORA Cup Series at Daytona. Also close to what could have been victory lane for him. He had the wreck avoidance of the race and finished in second behind the eventual winner, Daniel Mosteller. So I'm sure Rowe looking to find the checkered flag for paintbrush racing as there's a huge incident. Jim Thurston gets barreled into the wall and comes back on track, and he is going to have to go down to pit road there. Luckily, he has a faster pair in this practice session, but not in the race. Alexander Balderas was the only driver not able to complete his one and only qualifying lap. He attempted, not able to get that lap through as he spun on the back straightaway. The 95 making his first start in his SNT season, foregoing the IORA championship this time around after collecting his first win in our previous campaign. Maybe a chance tonight. The Houston native can go out there and collect the checkered flag from the tail end of the field. A lot of familiar faces around him, so maybe some support will help him get up to the front. We're looking now at pit road as busy as it gets. Harry Smith, first-time driver tonight with TJ Hanley's team. He's going to be starting up inside of the top 15, but Sean Rowe will be the fastest driver in final practice. His fastest time, a 30.515. That is good for quick time here from the Lone Star State. Rowe, fastest in practice too. Checkered flag gonna fall in our final practice session here, and it looks like time to put together your starting grid here from Texas as everyone gets settled in for a 100-lap feature. Last time we went to Texas, give or take about a season and a half ago, we haven't gone to this new configuration since season 4 of the Truck Series, and it's been a long time coming ever since that point. Many a time we say Jordan Kuntz is the race winner of seasons past, and yes, he has won here at Texas before, but it looks like tonight we will see a new race winner from the Lone Star State. Starting grid is packed with talent. There's a look at the front of the field with Wilkerson, Matthew Weeks and company. Then you look down, and it's still an onslaught of drivers loading in. Alec Daffin, who's been as good as he's ever been this opening portion of the season, starting in 7th, still eyeing up that first victory, but after the troubles he had in our previous season to open up the campaign with misery at Daytona and Watkins Glen, the way he's done so far at Daytona, of course, season opener this season, which was Auto Club. Then from there we went down to a short circuit just a few weeks ago, Kern County. Overall, Vegas too, he's done much better and finds himself in the thick of the championship battle. With Jordan missing a race here, everyone's going to have a chance to get themselves back in the right state of mind to fight for the title here. 100 laps on the table as our SNT field is ready to go at it once again. So let's talk about track conditions here tonight. Texas Motor Speedway going to see track temperature of 110 degrees Fahrenheit, an ambient temperature of 68 degrees, and a relative humidity of about 40 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies over this Fort Worth, Texas track, and one that's been used now in stock car racing for nearly 30 years. Taking an overhead shot now to Texas Motor Speedway, you can see one of the very, very familiar intermediate tracks. PJ1 applied to the circuit in 2017. However, it doesn't really affect the way drivers decide to go about this track. Expect the bottom groove to be preferable early, but you might see guys move up to the middle and the top side when these rubber lines get laid in correctly, and you're going to see Texas Motor Speedway in iRacing anyway is successful at getting that multi-groove action in. I figure drivers are going to be experimenting as the race goes on, and they're going to try to use the heat to their advantage as the starting grid now pulls off and away for the first time tonight. You can see now drivers rolling off a pit road for a one and only pre-race pace lap. Jacob Wilkerson has a serious chance to break out to the championship race lead. As it stands, of course, one race win. He's already got it. And now he's looking for another. Las Vegas, very similar track to Texas, so he's got a very good opportunity to maybe do it all over again. Of course, intermediates don't always have the same characteristics, but at the same time, Las Vegas, very, very warm down in Nevada. This is another southern-bound intermediate track. Maybe those characteristics really stand out to Jacob here, and with the sun beaming down once again, he's got a shot to use it to his advantage. Matthew Weeks, of course, looking for his first win on the season. He came alive earlier in the year, able to get 3 wins in last season's playoffs to collect the championship in what was quite the steal from Jordan Kuntz. And now we're looking to see if he's got that energy of driving it like he stole it all over again. Let's see now what happens as the drivers here get ready to go for the Lone Star State once again. iRacing official pace car going to dip down a pit road and leave the field in the hands of Jacob Wilkerson. The number 42 is going to be putting it down, revving his engine and grinding those gears. Green flag's going to fly now. Barney the flagman going to wave him green, and we are underway from the Texas Motor Speedway. Jacob Wilkerson leads us through the opening turns. Wilkerson with a great opening launch there, and as you can see, he's got himself out and ahead just like that. Lead now about half a second, and that immediate first lap boost is going to get him away from the hustle and bustle of the mid-pack. Vinny Tigner going to stay side by side now with Matthew Weeks, and as they go 2 by 2, taking a look now at Jim Thurston, who's made it up 5 positions at once, getting himself up and again inside of the top 10, and it looks like he's looking for that much more. Thurston now finds himself 7th, and he's going to be chasing the back end of the number 6 position driver. That is Vinny Tigner. Let's see now what he can do as he finds himself in the inside groove through turns 1 and 2, maybe a little bit higher than his contemporaries just ahead of him, but all the same, drivers get away. 29 drivers took to the green flag, and all of which look to still be with us here. Taking a look further back, Alexander Balderas now going to be making some moves. He just went around the number 90 of Chris Tripp. That brings Balderas up to 21st, several spots ahead of his starting position, and Sean Rowe, more of the same. Sean going to find himself now in the 19th spot, working side by side with Michael Deitch is his next opportunity, and he's got the motive now to keep on making passes as he goes by Dana Van Meter and looks to make it a 3-wide pass on the inside. He gets by Deitch quickly, now trying to get by that 27 of Van Meter, who's not making it any simpler, as it looks like Ben Bushnell also going to be right in Sean's way. More of the same, leading is Jacob Wilkerson, and he's been able to get out with no hesitation. Sean Rowe going to find himself in a bit of a pickle, nearly goes down to the grass. Just like that, he's got room right down low. Ever the opportunist, Sean Rowe now finds himself looking for a top 15 spot quickly. Henry Kaloff now going to go diving deep on Alec Daffin, but it looks like this time Daffin has the preferable line and the better momentum. That will keep him up and ahead, and it's going to have his colleague there in the 63 scrambling, trying to find the right moves to maybe get back up there in the top 5 or even secure a higher placement. Vinny Tigner now going to run a little bit lower. Jim Thurston is perhaps the first driver to experiment with going somewhat higher than all those around him. It's not a huge difference right now, but you might begin to see how these drivers are deciding when they want to go to a different groove and why. I think Thurston's going to be one of the first drivers that if the middle groove comes in tonight, eventually we're going to see drivers there. Thurston might just be the first of which. One of the first anyway. And why not experiment here as Wilkerson was able to jump out to a major lead, but Gino Mero now has a chance to maybe reel him back in. Chimera Creative sent in 2 drivers this season at Auto Club. Gino Mero was the only one that came out on the other side, and whether or not that's coincidence leads us to wonder what's kept the 71 here. It looks like it's the grit of competition. He was banged up in that race, you might remember, in Fontana. Not one of his best endeavors for he or the team, and yet Gino remains up at the front of the field, and he's broken away from Van Pelt, Thurston, Kaloff, and now the only man who stands in his way is the man just ahead. That's Jacob Wilkerson, and I figure now he's got to look back once again. Here comes Gino working down the back straightaway and doing so quickly. Gap is now within 15/100ths of a second all over again, and as soon as we thought, man, maybe Jacob Wilkerson would break away, not really the case. It looks like for the time being anyway, he's going to have a little bit more trouble immediately breaking out for the race lead. Maybe Gino can keep him honest in the coming laps here. Sean Rowe's the biggest mover so far today, finding himself now up into the 13th position and maybe getting up to 12th if he can get by Kenneth Gorell. Alexander Balderas, the Houston native, not finding as much luck. He's in 17th right now, that number 95, and admittedly, trouble not going to be brewing just yet, but he's not in a good position. Not good enough to get up there and contend. It looks like Rowe is outpacing him for the time being, and if we're going to watch these two, who are both bound to end up in the top 15, it looks like Rowe is already bound for a top 10 finish as he's coming up on Matthew Weeks and Kenneth Gorell alike. He'll look 3 wide to the inside once more. Matthew Weeks, no choice but to give, and it looks like Rowe continues his onslaught of aggressive passes. That will take Sean Rowe up into 11th. And up next, Connor Asbell's got to be looking at the mirror and wondering, what can I do here? It looks like there's nothing that can be done to stop the ever-hungry Sean Rowe. And so, he's right on the tail end again, looking a little bit further to the inside as he comes down the start-finish line. Got to be patient here for Sean Rowe. I mean, he's made up some 10 positions already, and it would almost be 15 if he gets a few spots higher. It looks like lap over lap, he is about the 5th quickest driver in this field, and he's being blocked by drivers who are substantially slower than him at that. So the numbers right now for the number 20 cannot really be taken at face value. Instead, you might imagine he's even quicker than what we're seeing. Now Rowe gets up into the 10th spot. Up next for him would be Carter Casey and Gary Smith. Smith with an impressive debut so far, able to hold his own inside the top 10 and alongside Carter Casey, and hopefully we'll see a little bit more of Gary as the season goes on. He's coming in with TJ Hanley. Right now TJ's running in 22nd, but Gary Smith faring better than his sponsoring teammate, and it looks like for THD it's that number 41 doing a great job at the head of the field and keeping himself up in front and keeping Sean Rowe at bay, but we'll see how much longer that lasts anyway. Is coming across the start-finish line again. Looks like Gary gets loose, and here comes the wrath of the number 20, Sean Rowe, moving up a little bit higher and now taking it to the middle, starting on the middle groove, then through turns 1 and 2, getting that exit off of 2 on the bottom side and looking to take it 3 wide once again, and that he will. Sean Rowe looking for a 3 wide approach into turns 3 and 4. He's going to dive deep on Gary Smith again. Carter Casey with just enough momentum to avoid on the high side, and looks like now the 8 machine is in 8th and is trying to stay there firmly placed. Vinny Tigner's up to 4th. Jackson Van Pelt going to be 5th. Jim Thurston now is going to be in the position of number 5. He got up to 5th and just got by Henry Cowloff at that. The two drivers were swapping positions back and forth, but it looks like now the 96 has the clear-cut advantage. Last season, the first race that Jordan Kuntz missed was in Las Vegas. The winner of that event was Jim Thurston himself, so Thurston might be the odds-on favorite to win when Kuntz decides he's going to take a break for the first time in the season, but so far, it looks like Wilkerson might have taken those honors right away from him. Thurston's not running a bad race by any means now, but it looks like being held up by the likes of Tigner and Jackson Van Pelt, both of which who have shown substantial improvement season over season. And now Vinny Tigner going to be looking to take it 3rd on Jackson. Van Pelt's going to give him just enough room. Going to the middle, Jackson does almost voluntarily, and that's going to give now that number 12 the chance to move up into from 4th to 3rd, the podium places. Alexander Balderas joins the ranks of the top 15. He's now going to be on the back end of Kenneth Garrell, and it looks like Scott Erickson in particular now, the 50 machine, going to have another target on his back as the 95 seeps down to the bottom side, and might be a little bit more of a steady climb up for the number 95. Maybe not as aggressive of what we've seen so far from Sean Rowe, but definitely going up the ladder rather than worrying about going down. As low as 26 today, currently finds himself in 14th as he just makes a pass on Gary Smith. Gary's loose, caution's out. Reason being, it might be Gary, but I don't believe it is. Look further back, it's going to be Curtis Sabarin bringing out the yellow flag. The number 21 has trouble. Caution is out for the first time tonight. Curtis Sabarin going to be the cause, and it looks like at the same time Gary Smith got very loose. So take a look back now and let's figure out what just caused it here. The 21 of Curtis Sabarin looks to be your first retiree of the day. There's Alexander Balderas, but further on back, here's Curtis Sabarin. So number 21 going to be racing. Oh, hooked up the track by Matthew Fastnot. Oh, that's bad news, and unfortunately, that's going to be Curtis's day. Matthew Fastnot, I figure that was not an intentional wreck anyway, but with that being said, it looks like that 09 machine going to end up hooking up another driver, and for Fastnot, he's lucky to get out of that unscathed himself, but all things said and done, the 09 machine going to be mostly responsible for that incident. We'll take a look on board now and see both perspectives of what just happened. So Matthew coming down the back straight, looked to be maybe losing in the battle against T in the 21, and Curtis is there. Matthew's coming low, and up the track goes that number 21. Fastnot does get away here, and you can see the smoke billowing right behind him. All things considered, though, yellow flag out for the first time, and a minor incident at that, but unfortunately that will take out number 21, and Matthew Fastnot will get away and keep on driving here. We'll see if there's any penalties for any driver involved there. Curtis Sabarin, though, facing the penalty of his race practically being over as drivers head down a pit road for the first time tonight. Caution is out. Looking at Jacob Wilkerson right now, looking if he will be the first man off the pit road as he came in, your leader. And now as the field gets settled in once again, drivers are now rolling out. Jim Thurston coming up there, but it looks like no match for Wilkerson. Gino Marrow going to be second, Thurston third, then Jackson Van Pelt, Vinny Tigner, Henry Kaloff, Mac Grab, Sean Rowe gets up to 8th, Carter Casey 9th, and Matthew Weeks 10th. Alexander Balderas, another notable mover, he gets up to 12th as a result of the pit cycle, and now we're going to see a little bit of a shuffle up at the front of the field. No matter for the 42 of Wilkerson, Jacob still remains your race leader. So Wilkerson going to find himself on top yet again. 19 laps in out of 100. We will go green at lap number 21 now. And Gino Marrow going to be second. Vinny Tigner third. Jackson Van Pelt occupies the 4th spot. Wilkerson so far has led every lap on the day without fail. And it looks like as he comes off pit road again, well, the trend, simply put, it will continue. Don't expect him to change up his attitude about racing tonight. Wilkerson seems to have the clear-cut fastest car on the track, and with conditions staying relatively the same from start to finish tonight, I can't imagine anything's going to change when we talk about track position for Wilkerson. He's going to be up there inside the top 5 unless an incident happens, and like it or not for the field, they're going to have to deal with Wilkerson all night long if they want any chance at victory. Of course, Gino Marrow might be the next man looking, but he hasn't quite found a way to fight the number 42. Of course, that could change, and with time still the favor of most drivers, we'll see whether or not the 42's got it now. Level playing field, even footing for every driver on tire and fuel. And we're going to head back green this time by with the 42, your leader for the opening restart on the day. Now, of all the drivers who are in this race, Alec Daffin is actually the first retiree of which. He went down 14 laps ago and quietly exited this event. No yellow flag for Daffin, but it looks like perhaps connection issues are what took him out of this race. No sign that Alec's going to be returning as well, so it looks like for the driver of the number 48 machine, Daffin is out. And we'll see whether or not he returns in the coming laps. Curtis Sabarin 3 laps down on pit road as well. Rest of the field, 27 drivers worth, are all on pit road, or rather, they've just escaped it. Now it's going to be Jacob Wilkerson leading them from pit road, and the yellow flag back to green as it's our opening restart of the day. Green flags out at lap number 21, and again, it's going to be Wilkerson with a major jump up and ahead, and now Jim Thurston moves up to second as we kick off the green flag cycle once more. Thurston going to find himself now running in that runner-up position. Gino Marrow moved back ever so slightly, and Vinny Tigner fights against Jackson Van Pelt. As we get back to green, Sean Rowe is just outside the top 5. Many changes to start this run, but one thing remains the same. The field spreads out rather quickly. Gap between Alexander Balderas right now in 11th and leader Wilkerson. That's going to be 2 whole seconds here. The number 95 able to get up to 12th, his highest running spot of the night, until he made that pass just a few moments ago. But Gary Smith is coming up hot on the outside line. Connor Asbell gets a little bit loose. He will save it, and he will have to head down to the apron. Number 72 machine at Asbell here loses several spots, and as such gets away from the field, does not cause any trouble or damage, and as such now the number 72 is going to have to keep on going, hoping not to cause any further trouble. Connor now in a 3-wide move with Dana Van Meter and TJ Hanley. Looks to have just enough speed to hang on to those positions, and he's a driver who's been up and down the order today. Currently now finding himself in the 19th position. Kicked off the race in 10th, as low as 15th last time by, and it looks like now the lowest spot he's been in all night long, of course, for him to be this far back. We'll see whether or not all night long is enough time for Connor to get back up there into the thick of things up at the head of the field. Sean Rowe's now going to be in 7th, and now that a majority of his digging up to the front of the field has been done, you might imagine that it's going to be easier and quicker for him to just keep on making moves with the same level of aggression. But it looks like even Henry Kaloff here for 6th is keeping him honest and at bay. The 63 going to keep on his defensive driving, and Sean Rowe having no choice right now but to run down to that inside groove and use it to his advantage rapidly. It looks like Sean Rowe going to make that quick pass. That gets him up to 6th. Henry Kaloff going to be just behind in the number 63 machine. And just like that, another quick move made there for Rowe. We'll see if he gets up to Jackson Van Pelt, though, because Jackson so far has found himself in a real good position, hanging up inside the podium placements since the beginning of this event. Jackson is a driver still due for that first race win, and the intermediates seem to be his best style track. You might remember his breakout race about a year ago when in the Truck Series era, it was Atlanta Motor Speedway where Jackson Van Pelt was able to lead north of 50 laps on the day before eventually settling for an out of top 5 range finish. I believe he finished 8th in that event overall, but Jackson on that day showed that he had what it took to become a veteran in this series with enough practice and dedication, and that's about where he is now as one of these series veterans. He's been here now for give or take 2.5 seasons and has become one of the fastest drivers in the field on a race-by-race basis. Now, the question becomes when he will be able to break out and get up there with the likes of Thurston and Merrill and Wilkerson. I think it all comes down to circumstance. Tonight, it looks like it's one of Wilkerson's stronger tracks again, and that's a similar thing you'd have to ask or imagine about when we go down to a short track and Jordan Kuntz is able to dominate, or we go to one of those longer circuits, someone like Alec Daffin, who is the most recent winner in this league at Pocono. That's where he comes alive in his own right. So different drivers have those different tracks where circumstance prevails for them. Maybe Texas, not one of his better tracks, but Van Pelt right now, he is up there in the top 5 even still, and Vinny Tigner gets back up to 4th. Top 3 drivers, though, they've remained very tight to one another. So far, it looks like Jacob Wilkerson still holds the advantage, but Thurston has gotten as close as within 1/10 of a second of gaining that race lead. Just hasn't quite been able to make his way around and find that perfect opportunity to go down to the inside groove, and it looks like that's the biggest problem of all things now for the 96. He does not have an opportunity to really drive down to the inside and make things happen. So as Thurston keeps on biding his time, Gino Marrow will as well. Gino let Jim Thurston go, but it looks like he didn't lose all too much speed with it. Matter of fact, he's kept things at the exact same pace so far, and the driver of the number 71 machine hangs tough and now comes across the line. Lap number 30 here, just within the confines of the race-leading battle. Gap between the top 3 is 4/10 of a second, and up high here, Jim Thurston's going to go yet again, looking for some momentum on the middle groove of the track, but it doesn't quite come to him here, and he'll have to settle short, and thinking better of it won't be all too aggressive. Alexander Balderas now the final driver inside of the top 10. He's made up as many positions as he could on the night, but it looks like now finding himself at a little bit of a stalemate, as it looks like Carter Casey's gotten ahead of him, running solidly, yes, but hasn't quite been able to break out the same way Sean Rowe has. Rowe getting up to 5th, Alexander Balderas getting up to 10th, and as great as both of these runs have been, you might wonder what could these drivers have done with a little bit more practice and qualifying at their advantage. Balderas only took 2 laps in practice and, of course, wasn't able to complete his one and only qualifying lap. Sean Rowe had the advantage of being the fastest man in second practice, but again, qualifying, he came out a few seconds too late and was not able to score a top time on the board. He looked to be the pace to get up there in the top 10, as right now, looking for the race lead, Jim Thurston toe-to-toe with Jacob Wilkerson, and the first man to use the middle effectively. Yes, it's the 96. Thurston now going to be riding down the back straightaway, sailing at a speed of 185, and a little bit higher than that as they enter turn 3. Thurston stays up there on the top. Looks like momentum going to carry him right beside, and side draft might give him a little bit of an advantage as now door to door. Wilkerson also sees Gino Marrow coming up, and he's got both sides he has to block, mirror driving and blocking on his door panel here. Thurston doesn't have to worry about any of that. He's on the full-on offense here, and with that, he's got the back straightaway where he pulls much more speed. He's almost out of his way. The number 42 nearly getting cleared down the straight most every lap now. Wilkerson's got to change something. Jim Thurston is coming in quick, and it looks like the Power Smash Infinity Speed Motorsport 96. He's here, and he's looking for the race lead. Gino Merrill going to keep on watching on with the best seat in the house. You see there, Thurston doesn't really have to lunge into the corners to make use of that wide and very, very large turn entry, and look at that, making it out of the turn with the exit in mind. The back straight gives just enough speed for Thurston to once again nearly pull a car length up, and it hasn't worked out just yet. Oh, slight contact, and Wilkerson's gonna have to give. That will give Thurston the race lead, and just like that, the 96 advantageous, and Wilkerson so slowed down there that Gino Merrill's now got a chance to go down to the inside himself. Here comes Gino, looking right down to the bottom, and Wilkerson, definitely flustered by the incident, is now going to try to put himself together and get that momentum back in his advantage. Wilkerson only just able to hang on a second here. Here comes Sean Rowe. Sean now finding himself just ahead of Vinny Tigner, and he might have a chance to make a very similar move as Thurston did on Wilkerson. Now to Gino Marrow. This is the fight for P3 here, and Gino's going to have the inside groove. Sean Rowe, with momentum and a head full of steam, is up top looking for the third spot in his own right. Looks like the number 20 now bursting out, and he's got third place all to himself. That's going to be Sean Rowe now, bottom step of the podium. Moreover, Vinny Tigner now heads down to the bottom groove, getting himself on the inside, and Gino Marrow is going to be up top. Here we go again, the number 71 machine, this time losing another position on the high side as he did the low. Doesn't quite work out for Marrow. He falls back to 5th, and watching the battle here, Jacob Wilkerson is within 1/10 of a second. He didn't lose all too much based on that minor slip-up, and instead, he might be letting Thurston wear himself out. 37 laps, 10 out of 100 here. Lead battle going to simmer down temporarily anyway. Let's talk about the biggest gaps and the smallest gaps between drivers. And overall, the intervals are going to be tight at the front of the field, but maybe even a little bit tighter further on back. Outside of the top 10, you'll see guys like a Matt Grab and Kenneth Garrell immediately going at each other, but not much else has come between these two drivers. It looks like they're running comfortably in position, hoping to ride the line out until day's end. Ben Bushnell just got passed by Connor Asbell. Connor been struggling ever since his early wiggle before the first caution, and you saw there again, it looks like Gary Smith having some control issues, and Gary now going to find himself falling further down the ladder and drifting to turns 3 and 4. It looks like Gary going to find himself all loose and coming down the track. He should be coming to pit road, but he instead goes to the apron. Luckily, Gary able to put himself together, but that could have been real bad news as he drifted through the better part of the last 2 corners. And at the front of the field, side by side for the race lead, Thurston now going to be Wilkerson once again. This time it looks like Wilkerson's going to be surging down on the bottom and looking to get the race lead right back. Jacob is clear out of turn 4, and Wilkerson, as quick as he lost it, he retains the race lead and comes to lap number 40 now, once again with the edge. Jim Thurston going to battle back on the high side, but it's no use so far. Both drivers are going to be just about dead even and nearly identical lap after lap all over again. The gap is minuscule now between the drivers you're watching. Wilkerson looked to be perhaps a little bit slower after getting knocked off the top spot, but he's come right back and he's got the race lead. Thurston now finds himself in second. Take a lap on board now as the number 96 and watch him as the chase for the race lead continues on. That time by, it was Thurston who ran a 32.466. It looks like about a 10th off of Wilkerson on that lap around, and admittedly, Wilkerson now have the advantage of putting away a few more tenths lapping again. It looks like Thurston tried to get through with some aggression, but yes, he wore himself out, and so now Sean Rowe cuts to the inside looking for a runner-up spot himself, and it looks like PDR is now a 1-2 tandem at the head of the field. Teammates, completely different backgrounds on the day, are all all of a sudden race leaders together as we come closer and closer to the halfway mark. Vinny Tigner now is going to duck down low on Thurston, and it looks like everything crumbling for the 96 all at once. Here comes the number 12 of Tigner, looking low. Thurston's still trying to make that high side work, and while he has gotten a few passes done with it, defensively anyhow, it doesn't look to be the most efficient line. And as such, using that better inside groove to hold forward, that's what Tigner's going to be able to do to keep himself in third as Thurston continues to slowly but surely fade away. We'll see now what Vinny Tigner can get out of this battle, as it looks like Gino Marrow has gotten himself further back down to 5th, and maybe Matthew Weeks is coming through. Battles outside the top 10 are getting heated up yet again. Take a look now at Mac Grab going at it with Trey Holmes. This is going to be the move for 11th place. It looks like Trey just made it, and Mac Grab is going to think better of an immediate retaliatory attack. Instead, he's going to find himself lying back, maybe waiting for another lap or two to try to get some momentum built up. Both drivers are coming up on Alexander Balderas again, and it looks like while Balderas has held on to stay inside the top 10, he hasn't had much else pace on the night, and it looks like overall hasn't gained, especially to the same degree as a man like Sean Rowe. Thurston going to be battling again now with Vinny Tigner. It looks like Vinny's got the bottom groove and Thurston's got the high side, but once again, Thurston is going to be the man on the attack here, and he's making the move, pushing himself through the middle of the track, and then again coming out of the corner once more, 45 laps in out of 100. Thurston going to fall back ever so slightly. It's going to be Vinny Tigner, P3. Sean Rowe is in second, and Jacob Wilkerson up to the top spot. Overall, now everyone's settling themselves down in what's been a 30-plus lap run. However, only 25 laps on this set of tires, so the question becomes, when do drivers come down to pit road again? By all accounts and estimates, it looks like the optimal time to head down to pit road would be to go down at about lap number 70 or 75. Maybe lap 60 becomes more preferable at that, because a 25-lap stint is not too efficient. A 30-some lap stint would make more sense. Alexander Balderas now going to be moved out of the top 10. Here comes Trey Holmes making his way right out of the back straight, and it looks like now it's going to be that number 95 machine losing a little bit more time, and Trey Holmes instead becoming a little bit more of a gainer. That gets Trey back up inside the top 10. Up and down day for Trey, but not many moves have been made. He started in 9th, and now he finds himself in 10th, so down 1 spot on the day, but up 7 from his lowest position of 17th. So not a bad race in the slightest so far for Holmes, but I'm sure he has bigger expectations of perhaps catching up to the next man in Henry Kaloff, as he just got passed by Carter Casey. Take a look on the back end of the number 8, and you'll see whether or not Carter is gaining or maybe losing a little bit of time. Carter Casey looping out of the back straightaway here is ever so slightly making it away from Henry Kaloff, but I think more importantly in this fight is the man that's coming on up. Look at Trey Holmes here. He's gotten right up to Henry Kaloff's rear end, and it looks like now the number 88 machine is due to get himself up inside of the single digits if, of course, he can get by the 63. Catching up quickly, but passing is a different story. Now looking a little bit lower. Henry Kaloff going to give him room coming out of turn 2. Looks like Henry going to be unforcefully shoved up to that middle side, and those unforced errors being so important as it looks like Trey Holmes just makes one there. He tried to go high and cross him up and over. Doesn't quite work out. Instead, number 88 machine going to try to hang tough. Coming out of turn 4 once more. 50 laps in out of 100. Holmes and Carter Casey, Henry Kaloff alike, all battling here for the 8th spot. It looks like Carter Casey, with this distraction right behind him, shouldn't have to panic, as Alexander Balderas is going to be in a battle again with Mac Grab. It looks like Mac is making up time, and Alexander Balderas once again falling a little bit further through the order. The 53 right now of Matt Grab slicing through, and just like that, Grab up to 11th, Balderas back to 12th, and up front, Carter Casey now going to find himself in P8. Henry Kaloff now toe-to-toe with, of course, Matt Grab coming up, and Trey Holmes doing the damage. It looks like the top 15 and the top 10 drivers, the back half of the top 10 is shuffling up and over, and just like that, Trey Holmes is up into position number 9. Carter Casey gonna have to look out. Take a look at this quick surge from Trey Holmes, and just like that, it looks like a positive outcome on the race so far for Holmes. He gets up to 8th after being as low as 17th and starting 9th on the day. For the first time tonight, Trey Holmes is up on his qualifying number, and that moves him up to position number 8. Nice and smooth there, 53 laps in out of 100, and overall now less than 50 laps on the day. Take a look at your top 10 so far, with 48 to go. It's going to be Jacob Wilkerson leading, and then Vinny Tigner in second. You got Sean Rowe there in P3. Then you got yourself the number 96 of Jim Thurston, and Matthew Weeks making his move up into the 4th position. Now trying to go to get by inside of Jim Thurston, 4th and 5th, Thurston and Weeks. Then you got a cloud of smoke. That's going to be coming out of pit road, and luckily everyone looks to be just fine. Yellow flag not thrown on the track. It's Jackson Van Pelt there in P6. 7th place is now going to be Van Pelt, passed by Gino Marrow. Then you got 8th in Trey Holmes, 9th is Carter Casey, and position number 10, Henry Kaloff in the number 63. So we'll be right back after we get a word from our friends at iRacing Motorsports Simulations, who have brought aboard the action for online sim racing 2008. And now for more than 16 years, iRacing has been the leader and forefront pioneer of all online motorsport in any discipline. If you'd like to join the fun, visit iRacing.com for additional information about how you can become an iRacing driver, and we'll return after a brief word from our friends at iRacing.com.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You're watching the Lone Star 241 live on FTN, and with 44 laps to go, Jacob Wilkerson has found himself to be the dominant man all night long to this point. I'll tell you this much though, Vinny Tigner looking as good as he comes, and he's only gotten himself one win this year so far, which came at Michigan. Maybe this time by, he can get his second here in Texas, an intermediate track, and Vinny not too notable when it comes to these mile and a half so far in his SNT career, but it looks like tonight might be the turning point, and he's got a chance to make a move for the race lead. How about Trey Holmes? Trey able to make up another spot and get now up in his 6th position, maybe a top 5 bound for Trey, which will be his first of the season, if of course he keeps up the good effort that he's put in tonight. The Baja Blast number 88 has been having a great time in the past few laps, with 42 laps to go. Now finding himself just within the confines of the upper top 10. One man to the wall, that's Tyler Sevier. He's a lapper. Mac Grab going to make it by easily around him. And Sean Rowe has been finding himself on the downturn as of late. You can see Sean no longer inside of the top 5, and there's a reason for this one. It's not because he's been losing speed, but instead because very recently it looks like he went down a pit road. So for Sean Rowe, he went down 2 laps to go, which means our pit cycle is fully on the way, and we're at lap number 60. Expect within the next coming laps, maybe next 10 or so, the drivers will make their way in. Major undercut for Sean Rowe, and now he is like a jet going through these drivers, and he's looking to make a move. 3 wide, split in the middle with the lapper and the leader. David Tooker's an ace. Tyler Sevier is running right now in position number 24. Risky move, but luckily it worked. And so now Sean Rowe going to be one of the fastest drivers on the track. Take a look on board now with the number 20 to see how much quicker he is compared to those on old rubber. A little bit of a brush up in the wall there for Sean Rowe, but nothing too major, all things considered, and we're going to be watching on as drivers are due to head down a pit road any moment now. 39 laps to go, time is ticking, and we're thinking that Jacob Wilkerson will come in with the next 5 or 6 laps. If anything, laps for pit road should be within now and lap 75 anyway. However, most leaders have still decided not to drop down and in, and those who have committed have been few and far between. We'll see how much quick time there is until now and that point when it changes, but it's bound to be quick. Vinny Tigner right now going to be in second, 2/10 back, and overall he continues to make up moves. Of course, Vinny, his best race so far in the campaign, it would be if it finished right here and now, up 4 positions from his qualifying spot in 6th, and the last 4 laps he's remained a relatively stable gap to Jacob Wilkerson. No other changes to this point. 38 laps to go this time through, making it to only 37. Leaders are going to have very little opportunity and options as to when they decide to go in. Time is ticking, and it's going to be admittedly in their favor here as to when they decide to go down a pit road more than anything else. The decisions are going to be made fast, and the best calls will be made even faster. Pit road is as competitive, maybe even more competitive than the racing itself, and that's where things get more interesting than anything. Even though these drivers find themselves in a position where they run hundreds of laps plus on a week-by-week basis on the track, it comes down to whether or not they are the better drivers on pit road. Green flag pit stops are especially common when we go racing in Saturday Night Thunder Comp. And with that being said, we're looking at the Hornet's Nest going at it. Here's Carter Casey now, another man on that new rubber. Looks like Alexander Balderas, more of the same. And you can see the erratic up and down action these drivers are trying to put themselves in for. And it looks like Carter Casey now going to be coming down and in on the number 95 of Alexander Balderas. Take a look now. Another move is due to be made. Number 8 machine getting by Balderas, and he looks to be one of the fastest on track now. Carter Casey, watch out for the man in 18th as he's making up time and quick. Jim Thurston additionally very recently went down a pit road. Number 96 machine opting to go to pit road, and he is now just exiting. He'll be exiting and cycling just outside of the top 15 with 35 laps left. And he'll have that much time and then some, perhaps, to pull himself into a good position to go for the checkered flag. So, looks like Thurston going to be one of the first juggernauts up and ahead to watch as billowing smoke comes through again. That's Curtis Sabarin, who had an incident previously, but it looks like this time around he's going to find himself with nobody. No yellow flag to bail him out this time by, and Curtis is going to get back on the way. We're going to take a brief look back at what just happened here, but it looks like not much else comes of that incident there for the number 21. So Curtis Sabarin going to keep on moving, but take a look back 30 seconds and you'll see what caused it. Looks like just getting loosed off of 4 and driving through calmly down the infield grass, and luckily no one else gets involved, and Curtis will keep on going here as we come to lap number 69 this time by. Jacob Wilkerson far out ahead. Matthew Weeks is doing a wonderful job staying as the 3rd place driver here. We haven't talked much of him ever since he got by Jim Thurston, but it looks like he's still keeping up pace with your race leaders. And although he's been relatively silent, it looks like he's still got them just ahead. Take a brief look on board with the number 11 just laps away from heading down a pit road, and you'll see exactly what he's seeing. 69 laps in, doing a real nice job at that. Yellow flag is out again for the second time today. Caution's gonna fly, and the reason being as smoke billows once more. Matthew Fastnot is destroyed. It's the second yellow he's been involved in, but it looks like this time his motor is blown, and that would be his race. 09 machine with big trouble, and another Texas native who hasn't found much success tonight. Caution is out. Taking a look back now to figure out what happened for Matthew Fastnot as the yellow flag is out now with just under 30 laps to go when we are due to go green again. Attitude got loose with Curtis Sabarin, and the caution is out. And we're going to take it back for one better angle of that one, as you saw it barely out of the corner of your view there. But nevertheless, Curtis Sabarin looks like he might have been involved in the process. And the number 21 machine poking Matthew Fastnot and setting him right down the track. That brings out the caution for the second instance of the day. Just a poke, and that's what's going to cause the entire field to come to a creeping halt as drivers head down a pit road now for what's effectively a free pit stop for your race leaders. Jacob Wilkerson expected to come out the race leader again, but let's see what happens here watching our pit exit. More than 20 drivers make their way down and in. Matthew Weeks going to be on the way, as is Alexander Balderas. Coming out first, Wilkerson over Tigner, then Matthew Weeks, then you have after Trey Holmes, Gino Marrow, David Tooker, Alexander Balderas, Kenneth Gorell, and Henry Kaloff. The overall race leader looks to be Sean Rowe all of a sudden, and he finds himself still not on pit road. So now, coming close to 25 laps remaining, the final quarter of this one is just ahead of us. Since we have a little bit of time before we go green once more, we're going to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors and associates live on FTN who bring the action to you race after race. With non-stop coverage, you won't miss a beat of our green flag racing, and we'll return before the yellow flag has concluded. You're watching the Lone Star 241 live on FTN, and with 30 laps to go, Jacob Wilkerson and Sean Rowe are your current top two.
This message is brought to you by the rebrand of Throttle Graphics and Designs. This publication may not be reposted without the authorized written consent of Throttle Graphics and Designs. NASCAR Camping World Ford F-150. NASCAR Xfinity Ford Mustang. NASCAR Cup Series Next-Gen Ford Mustang. Arca Menards. This has been the publication of the redesign and rebranding of Throttle Graphics and Designs. This message may not be reposted, republicated, or rebroadcasted without the authorized written consent of Throttle Graphics and Designs. Thank you for your time.
Boundless makes its presence felt. It will not be ignored. We're helping turn ideas into reality with a wealth of building products that take every architectural style to the next level. This is what it's like to imagine, build, and transform anything we want into exactly what we seek. This is what it means to be boundless.
Coming back to green with 27 laps to go this time by. Race leader is going to be Sean Rowe, who very recently went down to pit road, but you might have noticed he did not go down with all those under caution. As a matter of fact, he's been on his run for 16 laps now, so we'll see whether or not the old rubber prevails, because he will find himself at quite the disadvantage, all things considered. We'll see whether or not this works out. Looks like a perfect opportunity for Sean Rowe, if of course he has just enough pace to hang tough and keep himself advantageous. Green flag is due to fly this time by, and of course it's going to be up and ahead Rowe and his teammate in Jacob Wilkerson. Top two drivers are ready to get set once more, and it's going to be time to see the pace car drop to pit road and let the number 20 do the work. As our control car, it's going to be Sean Rowe getting a chance to lead the field. Nice jump there, and Jacob Wilkerson going to stay right beside him, as with 27 laps to go, we are green again from Texas. Sean Rowe going to be race leading side by side. You'll see there Wilkerson and Matthew Weeks both alongside each other now as they get things going. And it looks like now as Sean Rowe makes the move, he's got himself up and ahead right up top. But it'll give just enough room for Jacob Wilkerson to quickly strike back. Oh, up the top of the track, you'll see now Sean Rowe making it 3 wide. And that's not good for the number 20. The old rubber already beginning to fade back. 3 wide will be Vinny Tigner taking it on the bottom. And so now with Tigner making it a real tight move, Sean Rowe continues to drop back. All the same, it's going to be now Jacob Wilkerson race leading. He's got himself advantageous. Alexander Balderas also almost up inside the top 10. Best spot he's been running it all throughout the night. He finds himself now up in 7th. P7 right now for the driver, the number 95. Let's see what else he can do here as he makes his way now down the straight once more. Back straightaway, banging bumpers. It looks like now door to door the 95 and the number 20. Alexander Balderas is going to hang tough, and it looks like he's got the edge over Sean Rowe. That will move him up into 6th. Rowe's trying at all he can, grasping for some air, but it looks like he is drowning now in the pack right behind him. Furthermore, you're going to see, well, there's Trey Holmes once again making up time quick and bringing with him David Tooker in that number 19. It looks like now Rowe's got no choice but to face the field that's now going ahead of him. Up and ahead, Jacob Wilkerson leads with 23 laps to go. We're due to go back at it now with 22 laps to go, and of course, as always, with 22 remaining, we crank it up with the best cameras on the iRacing platform, TrackCams22.com. We'd like to thank them for, of course, keeping us in the loop with iRacing's best broadcast cameras all throughout this year. And of course, if you like what we are seeing, make sure to check out Facebook.com/TrackCams or TrackCams22.com for additional information. Now, 22 to go. Let's get loud and crank it up with iRacing's best cameras at TrackCams22.com. Now, coming this time by to 15 laps remaining, Jacob Wilkerson remains up on the top of the board and looks like a few spots behind him. Well, 96 machine of Jim Thurston was, but no longer. You see now he's going to find himself all alone outside of the top 15. As a matter of fact, Thurston having a good race has unfortunately had to give it up. It looks like that 96, as you saw during our Crank It Up, ended up with trouble. Take a look back and here's the instant replay of just what happened. And looking back at Thurston's incident, well, you'll see it looks like luckily not taking it anyone else with him. The 96 was up there at the front of the field and he was up with Ben Bushnell. This is what happened. Take a quick look back. Thurston found himself with a 55 when Bushnell gets up to the quarter panel and sends him loose. Luckily, Thurston was able to lock it down without any other driver getting involved and almost came up the track to Mac grab, but he's safe. And it looks like nobody else is afflicted as we get back racing once again under green. Thurston is going to find himself now running, of course, outside of the top 15, and he's not going to find himself in winning contention any longer. The 96 machine overall going to be scored in 19th as it stands as Wilkerson comes to the line. The Baker's dozen, 13 laps to go. Then you got, of course, Matthew Weeks running in second. It looks like the defending champ is coming back to his old ways of being so consistent and quick at the front of the field, but still has not yet found victory lane. This would be Wilkerson's second win of the season if, of course, all comes to pass in his favor. That quickly remains to be seen. Nothing yet is confirmed for the driver of the number 42, but Jacob has a serious chance at coming home with the win, and getting so, of course, would be his second victory in the campaign, and would be a major one at that. A dozen to do it here for Jacob Wilkerson, half a second back for Matthew Weeks. It looks like while there is still competition, the number 42 is, of course, the clear-cut favorite here to make it a crooked number of victories and tie the number that so far Jacob Wilkerson has hit. Jacob Wilkerson, Jordan Kuntz, toe-to-toe for the championship. Let's look a little bit further back. David Tooker now going to find himself in a battle. This is the bout for 6th. Trey Holmes has been having a great second half of this race, getting as high as 6th, and once again, it looks like now he's got himself passed by Tooker. That's going to move David back into the 7th position, and it looks like Tooker's going to find himself getting just ahead of Trey Holmes. Moreover, you look a little bit further back in the battle for 8th and 9th. Maybe Alexander Balderas now having a chance to get up to 8th place. Kenneth Garrell make a fast move on. Nothing yet has happened, but it looks like Alexander Balderas with the best chance he's had all night long to stay firmly in the single digits. What's been a tumultuous night for that number 95 machine. It looks like he's eventually gotten the better of Sean Rowe, and the Houston native is now going to be up there in 9th, looking for 8th from Kenneth Garrell, and so close to what could have been a top 5 run, but it looks like once again, separation on these restarts is the most important factor. Track position, having those first 5 or 6 spots has been so huge for these drivers, and once again, playing in the favor of those who started up in front until the very end. Connor Asbell now going to be going at it with Sean Rowe. You can see Sean's going to be just a few laps up, of course, with that advantage, and he's falling down second after second. Asbell's been on the pursuit. Looks like now it's going to be the number 50 of Scott Erickson also coming through. Erickson goes high and wide. It looks like Connor a little bit more focused with his line through the first 2 corners, and it looks like now with Sean Rowe trying to settle in once again. Not going to be an easy pass to make, but figure now that Connor does still have the advantage with younger rubber. We'll see, though, what he can make of that advantage, because Sean is beginning to sort of come to grips with what he's got and might be able to last for the last 8 laps of this race. The final stretch is now upon us. Coming through for the driver of the number 11, Matthew Weeks. He finds himself here, of course, running in second. But Vinny Tigner's getting real close now. Let's see what he can do. He finds himself now just about 1,500ths off of this position. Battle for the runner-up spot is coming real soon for both of which. And let's see now what Vinny's got in store as he's making his way out of turn 2. Just ahead of him, Matthew Weeks scraping the wall ever so slightly. And it looks like now it's going to be mirror driving for the 11 if he wants any chance to hang tight with this position. Coming low, here comes the number 12. Vinny Tigner's now in a real good spot to make it happen. To the inside for turns 1 and 2, Vinny Tigner up to second with 6 laps to go, and that quick pass is going to move Matthew Weeks right out of the way. Number 11 machine now going to fade back ever so slightly. Let's see what's up next now for Tigner. 0.8 of a second for him to make it right back up to the leader of Wilkerson. If there's any chance, Jacob Wilkerson now finds himself coming across the stripe yet again. 5 laps remaining. That's what's here for Wilkerson. He's just got to hang tough through 20 more corners overall. It looks like he's doing a pretty good job through the first 2 if he wants to make it out again as a SNT race winner. Alexander Valderas has gotten even closer to Kenneth Garrell in these dying laps here. It looks like all of a sudden he's got a real chance to make it up into 8th. The gap is 17/100 of a second, and now closing time has become minimal. Kenneth Garrell, Alexander Balderas, 1-2 drivers who are going to be fighting each other now just within the confines of the top 10. They've been able to break through at long last. Alexander Balderas, low of 26th. That's where he started. Ran the majority of the race just within the top 15. And for Kenneth Garrell, another quiet race. He started in the 18th, and this is the highest spot he's been in all night long. With minor attrition playing a role, it looks like both drivers have been able to benefit substantially from the way this race has progressed, and so you see them here and now fighting each other for a position inside of the top 10. Taking a look this time by, it's about time. 3 laps to go. David Tooker still going to be with Trey Holmes. Trey has gotten up in a 5th. It looks like now David's going to find himself P6 yet again. Holmes is now going to find himself chasing after Gino Marrow as well. Let's see what Gino can do here. He's had a great race and is just off of the podium speed. What would have been his first ever podium this season. It looks like now going to come to pass. Going to pass him by. Matthew Weeks is going to be P3. Looks like he's finding himself firmly ahead of Gino Marrow, so he'll have to worry not about the number 71, but instead keep looking at what's just ahead of him. 2 laps to go. Popsicle sticks as it comes down to these last moments. Kenneth Garrell breaks out slightly compared to Alexander Balderas, so little that he can do now. The 95 would have to wait for a mistake. If we get down to the white flag without any further trouble, this race would be official, and that it is. White flag for Jacob Wilkerson, the dominant man on the night, who so far has led 88 laps of 100. Make it 89 as he crosses the white. He's looking for a 90% lap lead rate and a fantastic drive here from the Texas Motor Speedway. Not much could have shaken the number 42 tonight. Strategy was very typical, very little room for him to sort of deviate from everyone else, but there's one thing that you can't beat, it's that raw speed. And so far, Jacob Wilkerson has gone 2 for 2 on the intermediates this season, and he's going to strike gold in a Texas-sized prize pool. Victory strikes again for Jacob Wilkerson, his 2nd win of the campaign, and a 90 lap lead rate out of 100 total laps. Near perfection for the 42, winning from the pole for the 2nd time this season. Wilkerson grabs the checkered flag. A spinning David Tooker comes by your race leader. Jacob Wilkerson gets the job done over 2nd place. Vinny Tigner. It'll be Matthew Weeks 3rd and Gino Marrow there in 4th, with Trey Holmes P5. David Tooker then 6th, and Henry Kaloff then in there in 7th. 8th place is Kenneth Garrell with Alexander Balderas 9th. Chris Tripp comes home 10th. 11th place will be Matt Grab with Ben Bushnell 12th, Sean Rowe 13th, and Connor Asbell P14, as it's Jackson Van Pelt 15th, Michael Deitch 16th, Connor Casey P17, and James Bowden in 18th. P19 for James Thurston, 1 lap down after his slide, and Dana Van Meter finishes in 20th. Then you got 21st for Scott Erickson, Tyler Sevier in 22nd, and TJ Hanley 23rd. 24th place is Justin Potts with Curtis Saban in 25th. It'll be Aaron Sire in 26th, Matthew Fastnot 27th, Gary Smith in 28th, 29th, and last, Alec Daffin. And it's about time now for your race winner, a 2-time race winner at that, Jacob Wilkerson, to burn down the house. And so the number 42 machine puts a quick end to a well-deserved celebration. Jacob Wilkerson has been the man at these intermediates so far, and it looks like his early dominance, it has not yet stopped. Keep your eyes out for Jacob Wilkerson all season long. I think now we've got a driver who's definitely worth watching for the championship, and the quickest rookie in SNT does it once again. Crooked number in victory lane. It's the number 42, Jacob Wilkerson, back on top. Here's a word from your top driver with 90 laps led on the day, Jacob Wilkerson. Dominant from Texas and your second win this season. How is it like out there for the Lone Star States?
Yeah, it feels pretty good. Car definitely gets either tight or loose on the long run, depending on how you drove it. I was feeling a little bit of tight on the closing laps, like Vinny was starting to close in there, but I was just more focused on just getting it back to the white flag and came out the winner.
And it looks like tonight, coming out the victor, we saw 2 cautions. Strategy was relatively simple. It seemed like the pace in qualifying, simply put, it held up. I think these intermediates, you're taking a liking to them so far. What was it like at Texas? Maybe one you don't go to all often. You think the pace, or rather the driving style here, suits the way you work at it?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a fun combo here. Texas is one of my favorite tracks on the service. It's also my home track. So it feels good to win at my home track here, and it was fun battling Thurston, Weeks, and Vinny. Those guys, they were pretty fast, and yeah.
Looks like tonight, fastest on the field. Tires, we didn't speak all too much of them. You went down a pit road under yellow to get your one and only extra set. How much did tire degradation play into it? Because it was warm. I mean, track temperature was more than 110 degrees.
Oh yeah, we had one tire set left on the final pit stop, and basically, if we were like 20 or 25 laps in on our tires, then it's worth taking them. The tire fall off, it usually lasts about like 30 laps or so, and basically just not overdriving the right front and also the right rear, because you could either get pretty loose in the center or very tight exit, so it was just basically just taking it easy.
And managing everything just right. Jacob Wilkerson getting the job done here from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. What's up next on the table, of course, on our schedule? Well, you've seen the intermediates have done great for you so far. We're going somewhere completely different. Bristol, 200 laps. That's what's up next. And with that being said, short tracks. How do you feel about those in this series?
Short tracks are usually not my thing, but if I'm available next week, I'll probably do it. But yeah.
There we have it. Jacob Wilkerson getting the job done on the number 42. Any final comments or shout-outs you'd like to give? We'd love to hear it.
Shout out to everybody at home watching. Gotta thank Tadra for giving me the opportunity to race for PBR. Thanks to my partners at Race CPI for everything they do. Burnt Rubber Racing Warehouse, and Vinny for putting this league together, and you for broadcasting. And yeah, fun race.
Well, there we have it. Jacob Wilkerson, 90 laps led here from Texas, getting the checkered flag tonight in the Lone Star 241K. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Jacob Wilkerson on the move. Let's get up to our second place driver tonight, Vinny Tigner. What a job he had tonight, of course, in making his way up to the runner-up position. It looks like one of your best races this year to date, and of course, best finish on the season. Vinny, how you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling good. It's always good to finish up front. I had fun out there, so felt like I had pretty decent pace, but obviously not the winning pace.
And right about that, I mean, it looked like nobody had a match there for Jacob, but you came alive, particularly in those final 50 laps to get up to second place. So we got to ask you, while other people struggled keeping pace, it looks like you only got quicker and quicker. What about the track tonight really spoke to you?
It's just the line-sensitive track, and I've a few years back I learned something, and it's worked with every car on this track. So the way I drive it, it just works for me, and it saves my tires too. It might be a little bit slow in the beginning, um, but it comes to me on the long run, and that's kind of what happened here. And in this last run here, after that late race caution there, I probably saved a little bit too much, because then I had to drive even harder just to get back up to Jacob, and at that point it's a wash on what I saved. So probably could have gone a little bit harder on that start, and then so I could have been a little bit closer to him, and would have been fun to see what could have happened. But I mean, yeah, I stayed in tow with them on earlier or halfway through the race there, and but yeah, I felt good though.
And what could have been if we had maybe 10 or 15 more laps? You were closing on Wilkerson in that final stint, just not enough at the very end to, of course, get the job done. And now, you, of course, are one of the many drivers who benefited from Jordan Kuntz missing out on this one. So the points gap for the championship, slightly less so when we move on to Bristol. 200 laps at one of our most chaotic tracks on the record. We've seen what's happened before at this league and that track, but we keep almost every race clean. It's not much a worry with respect to, of course, how things go there. But how are you feeling about your championship chances maybe being a little bit more in a higher light after tonight's race?
Yeah, I like my chances for sure. There's obviously some good tracks for me, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. And you said Bristol's next week, so I really want to redeem myself from last season. I felt like I had it covered, and I got taken out by a lap car. So hopefully get another chance at it, and this time I keep it clean and finish it out, and hopefully get a win here soon. I need it.
Well, getting real close to finding the checkered flag again. Vinny Tigner second on the day here. If you have any final shout-outs you'd like to give or any last word before we take the trip to Tennessee, we'd love to hear it.
Well, I'll start off with obviously thanking you for everything you do for our league and calling our races. You do a great job, and thanks to all these drivers that showed up tonight. I think that was the highest car count we've had at a non super speedway race. So very, very happy about that. So thank you to all those guys that showed up tonight, and hopefully got some people tuned in tonight and enjoy that one. It was fun out there for me. So.
There we have it. Vinny Tigner, P2 on the day. Thank you again for your time.
Hey, thank you.
One last man we'd like to speak to, the defending champ, Matthew Weeks, once again finding the podium, but maybe not to his liking, coming through only in the third spot. Nevertheless, Weeks, it looks like the pace just got better and better as the race went on for you, much like it did for Vinny, and overall, even though you were as low as 13th, the middle point of this race, you finish up second where you started. How was it like out there? Or rather, third, shall we say. Still a podium finish. How was it like out there?
It was fun. I liked how the setup, like, it kind of was like loose in the middle, then it trended to tight. So it was good. I really enjoyed the long run. I know I backed up to, like you said, 13th, and I was just trying to save my tires. I noticed a lot of guys were just driving into the corners really hard, and that paid off, and we was able to drive back up there. And then I think that last run, I just drove a little too hard in the early part, trying to get the lead from Wilkerson there because I wanted the clean air. But other than that, it's a good finish. I needed a decent finish to come back since I wasn't here for Kern.
Missed in one of these races, so a night like this, definitely necessary. And it looks like with you making those gains late on, you could have gotten yourself up there, perhaps in the fight. It looked like you and Tigner both quicker than Wilkerson in the final long run when everyone was level on tire, but I don't think anyone had it there. One thing we will say for certain, you fought from the middle of the field up to the front. You saw both sides of it. Seems like we were mostly clean today. How did you feel about the driving, having to work around other drivers here, knowing Texas is usually tricky when it comes to passing?
It was good. I was just getting aggravated with the people that are blocking for like 8th, 10th, and right in there in the mid pack. And it's like, why are you blocking like here, man? You're not really racing for a win or anything. It's still early in the race. Like, I understand it feels like 5 to go and you want to keep that, but that was my only problem, was the blocking and stuff. But other than that, everyone kept it clean and it was good hard racing.
Nice and clean it was, and with that being said, you missed our first short track. Maybe a chance to redeem yourself with Bristol coming right up next. Do you think you're going to be able to make it to that event?
Yeah, I'll be there. I didn't have Kern, and I was out of town that weekend, so I couldn't make that one. But I'll be here for Bristol. Try to figure it out. That's one of those tracks I kind of struggle at. I've always never been good at that track. Even my console days, like 12 years ago, it's always been one of those tracks I despised racing at. But hopefully we figure it out and we get a decent finish.
Nevertheless, a chance to get out there and maybe look for another podium. Matthew Weeks, third place on the day here. If you got any final comments you'd like to give, we'd love to hear it.
Shout out to you, always doing these broadcasts by yourself, man. You do a good job. Vinny and Casey running this league. It's always a good coming here and have some good green flag runs. Shout out to Trey and Tooker. They're here tonight. They ran good. Everyone that watched, any sponsors as part of the league, shout out to you guys too. And my painter, JV Designs, hit him up on Twitter. He paints these beautiful schemes. And yeah, man, that's about it.
There we have it. Matthew Weeks, P3 on the day here from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. Thank you again for your time.
All right, man. Thank you. You have a good one.
Moving on from Matthew Weeks, one last driver we'd like to interview, the biggest mover on the day. All things considered, Alexander Balderas making gains from the very tail end of the field, 26th up to 9th. That's a gain of, 15 places, Alex? How you feel?
I feel pretty good. I, could have been somewhere near the 20s if hadn't given up a couple spots there. Didn't know I was blinking. I never blink, so I didn't know kind of what to do. But tried to pass Kenneth there at the end. Just couldn't get the car really turned off too, and that was my main problem. I think if I fueled the car a little bit more, I maybe had a little bit rotation. But overall, that race was fantastic. That long run in the middle was really, really good.
This is your second time in this league coming down to Texas. Last time you did it, though, was 2 seasons ago in the trucks. So it's been a long time coming, a much bigger field. How is it like to return to Texas and, of course, S&T competition? And it looks completely different, but, of course, same league at its core.
Well, same league at its core and, different car and everything. But I honestly think that race was much, much better. Better car and I think better track state and temperature as well. The Xfinity car will clown the truck in a race any day. So, but that was a phenomenal race. I really think that is why I like Texas so much. It may not be a barn burner when it comes to racing action, but that is something that I think is really good. That long run, that nice strategy, maybe a caution thrown in the mix or two, and you still see some pretty good action. It's that kind of maybe, will he make the move, will he not make the move? I thought that race was really good.
And one thing we'd like to talk about, of course, is it was a different track state from when you last raced here, and it was a warm one at that. So with that being said, tires, did they impact you at all? It seemed like you were able to hang in there in the top 10 based on everything.
Yeah, so Jim and I were talking, we think at a point the tires kind of fall off to a degree where even if the percentage gets lower, it can't really fall off any further. I think after about 50% or so, maybe 60 is when you start getting into where it really won't get any slower, just the percentage goes down and the wear gets longer. After that run, we were discussing two different strategies. The average fuel tank could go 60 laps, and so if the race being 100, you only really had to pit once after lap 40, and you would make it just fine. So I was telling Jim, since we pitted on lap 16 and got another full tank, we could make it to like lap 78 before having to come down pit road again. So I told him, we used that set in the beginning, and we had 4 sets, 1 on the car and 3 in the box. If we came down on lap 50, then maybe we could try and get something to work with the tire wear to try and even it out maybe. But Jimmy tried doing that run later, and then that is unfortunately what caught him to be stuck, I think, a lap down by the finish, and what changed in that last late race caution. But yeah, tire wear definitely mattered a lot. Being able to kind of save the front, not as much as you could, but just to give it a happy medium with the right side. I found out that really I was about a 5%, maybe 6% wear difference between the front right and the right rear. Typically the right rear had a little bit more meat on the tire left because, your goal is to not slide the car too much, especially in hot conditions. So I was trying to, not slide it around. It mainly got loose through 3 and 4. There's a bump in the middle of 3 and 4 that really kind of got you slideways if you weren't too careful. But yeah, it was just kind of loose off the exit of 3 and 4, and then kind of tight through 2. But I did my next-gen Texas strategy of wrapping around the bottom and just not leaving until the last moment, and that seemed to have worked really well.
Looks like your strategy paid off there, getting off a little better than Thurston with respect to late race strategy. In your first race of the season, we're moving on to Bristol up next, and whether or not you're going to be there here, we're, of course, taking our trip down to Tennessee starting right about now. So if you got any final thoughts you'd like to add here, Alex, we'd love to hear it.
Well, Bristol is a tough track, especially with the Xfinity cars. I love the Xfinity car, to there and back. I think it's the best oval car on the service. But Bristol is going to be a hands-full of a race. With these guys, I think the race could be pretty good. This field seemed really nice, a lot of nice guys, and a lot of nice compliments throughout the field, really good racing. So I think Bristol might be a fun one, but it's going to be a tough one.
And we're hoping to see, of course, some good racing again. Alexander Balderas, good way to open up your season. Finishing off in at 9th today, gaining 15 places. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, David.
Just like that, we've heard from our top 3 drivers and Alexander Balderas alike. Third man on the order day, Matthew Weeks getting it done, your defending champion, P3. P2, Vinny Signer, and your race winner, Jacob Wilkerson. Dominant affair for the number 42 once again. And of course, he's got himself his second win in only now 3 race attempts. He's done a real good job so far, finding himself now as the championship leader, and we'll see if that momentum prevails into our next race at the Bristol Motor Speedway. But with that being said, you've been watching coverage of the Lone Star 241 live on FTN. I've been your host for tonight's broadcast, David Kreutz, and if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like on the stream and subscribe to the channel. I'll be helping out the boys at High Velocity TV with their next broadcast, so I'll be jumping over there momentarily. And now it's time to head forth for our next race at the virtual Bristol, Tennessee. If you'd like to be a part of that race, scan the QR code on your screen, and you can join any FTN broadcasted league you'd like. We'd love to have you on the track as well with the best in Saturday Night Thunder. Thank you for tuning in to our coverage here from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. You've been watching FTN Broadcasting. We hope you have a fantastic night.